Arkansans play a prominent role in the Republican convention. A complaint against Governor Hutchinson is being heard. The stateside court turns down a challenge on drug secrecy, but for now halts lethal injections, and a conviction in a case with connections to the Department of Human Services. That's coming up on Arkansas Week.
Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.
This is Arkansas Week.
And thanks for joining us. I'm Michael Hiplin, News Director of KUAR 89.1 in Little Rock. I'll be sitting in for Steve Barnes this week for Arkansas Week. It was a busy week politically, and joining me here to discuss it is Rob Moritz. He's a journalism instructor at the University of Central Arkansas. Steve Bronner is an independent journalist, and Hal Bass is a political science professor at Ouachita Baptist University. And quite a week. We had the Republicans meet in Cleveland. Several Arkansans, 3 of our state elected office holders took part in the convention. And Hal, first, how do you think Arkansans will respond or take in what they saw this week?
Well, I think that the Arkansas presence was really unusually visible this time around. And I think that the folks who did speak at the podium, and there were 3 in speaking roles, and then we had Senator Cotton, we had Governor Hutchinson, Attorney General Rutledge. We also had Congressman Steve Womack presiding over a rules controversy on Monday that got a lot of attention. And I think all the Arkansans acquitted themselves ably in this setting. And it really raises the question, how do we explain this Arkansas presence in Republican presidential politics these days? I think part of it is the old Woody Allen line about just showing up in a convention where there were a lot of no-shows. The Arkansas folks were there, but I think there's far more significant reasons here. I think that Arkansas is a reliably Republican state. I think we were late coming to the game in a regional sense, but we're certainly there in force now. And while trends are moving some of the southern states away from that Republican identity, Arkansas remains very, very solid. Then the last thing I'll mention is the Clinton connection and the belief in Republican circles that Arkansans know the Clintons well and are particularly able to criticize them.
So you think that was an intentional decision, partly
Yes.
to contrast Hillary Clinton and her background
Exactly.
in Arkansas?
I think for all those reasons, there was a willingness on the part of those who were sponsoring the event and organizing the event to put Arkansans front and center.
And interesting to see Congressman Womack there at the last gasp of the Never Trump effort at the convention. But Steve, of the Arkansans who spoke, we had Governor Hutchinson and the Attorney General Leslie Rutledge come out one after the other. Senator Cotton spoke on Monday. What struck you?
Well, for Senator Cotton, I think this was clearly a speech that was supposed to set him up for the future. It would not be the same as Senator Obama's, then State Senator Obama's keynote speech in 2004 that led to him becoming President Obama. But there was a sense that Senator Cotton was laying the groundwork for 2020. And afterwards, he did have a chance to meet with several state delegations. Donald Trump is not particularly his type of candidate. And in fact, he only mentioned Trump's name once, and that was only the last name, very briefly mentioning a Trump-Pence ticket. And that was all that he had to say about him. What struck me about Governor Hutchinson was that it was a relatively strong endorsement of Donald Trump. He did do the typical criticize Hillary Clinton part, but then he did go on and say that Donald Trump was basically the man for this time. And it was a little surprising to me. Governor Hutchinson has made comments about Donald Trump that were far from complimentary, and this would be his third presidential candidate to endorse after Huckabee and Marco Rubio. So that was a little bit surprising to me. Attorney General Rutledge, I think, was probably chosen because, as Dr. Bass was saying, she held the position that President Clinton once held, Attorney General. She's a female from Arkansas, and she did make a pretty strong argument against Hillary Clinton, so she had her moment too.
Yeah, and she got a lot of attention too nationally. Commentators were rather struck by her appearance, coming out there with a strong Southern twang and suggesting Hillary Clinton adopts a different twang depending who she speaks to.
Yeah, she said this is how a real Arkansas woman speaks. Actually, I know a lot of Arkansas women, and they all speak with many of them with different accents. But that was, her opening, and it seemed to work. We also had another Republican, Arkansas Republican, had a pretty important role, and that was Doyle Webb, the Republican State Party chair, who had a big role in the rules, and actually also addressed the convention very briefly. So we had 5 Arkansans who had a role this time.
And interesting too, you mentioned Governor Hutchinson. He, earlier this year, when he was backing Marco Rubio, a couple of different times told a national audience on NPR that Trump's words were frightening. But then fairly recently, a few weeks ago, came back and said that, he has said all along he would support the eventual nominee, and that Hillary Clinton would be much worse for the country than Donald Trump.
And that seemed to be the main theme for most of the convention. Was you heard less talk about Trump and Pence, and more discussion about Hillary Clinton and the importance of electing Trump because of the Supreme Court justices. But getting back to what Dr. Bass said, I think that the key is that Leslie Rutledge and Tom Cotton and the governor these are non-election years for them. And so they were a little bit safer in a state that really supported Trump in the primary. So they weren't really risking any political capital by going there and speaking like some others, like Rubio, who's announced he's going to run for re-election. I think he did a television or a telecast of his speech. And so that was one of the reasons that I think the Arkansans were a little more, they didn't have as much to lose politically at this time in their political lives.
And one final note on the convention, and Steve, you mentioned Senator Cotton. Hal Cotton, this is probably the biggest audience he's spoken to. He's been on the national talk show circuit for quite a while, but does it seem like he's laying groundwork here?
Well, there certainly is a widespread assumption that Senator Cotton does have national ambitions, and nothing that's happened in the past couple of weeks would undermine that assumption. He combines an extraordinarily impressive set of credentials with some real strong support from a particular party faction, the neoconservative faction, which of course promotes a pretty aggressive interventionist foreign military policy for the United States. But he also, and this is more of a regional thing, has some connections to the populist camp that seems to be in ascendance within the Republican Party. So obviously if Trump and Pence prevail, then Cotton's ambitions are on the sidelines for a while. But if they lose, I think that Cotton is someone that the party will be looking at and to in 2020.
All right. Well, on Thursday, the Arkansas Supreme Court turned down a request to rehear or reconsider its ruling last month concerning the state's drug secrecy law for lethal injections. But at the same time, Steve, they did grant a halt, or at least said the state can't set new execution dates until this actually, an appeal can go before the U.S. Supreme Court?
Arkansas has not executed a criminal since 2005, and now it's going to be a little bit longer. At issue is basically the secrecy of the drugs that are being used. Those who supply them don't want to be associated with the death penalty. They feel it's bad publicity, but they want to supply them, some of them. And so Arkansas, first of all, had a tough time even getting the drugs. Once it got them, the question is they want their identities to be withheld, and that's the law in Arkansas that's really at issue. It goes before the Supreme Court, or it's been asked to go before the Supreme Court, which is rare. Most cases that are requested to go to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court does not take the case. But this is one more way of delaying the process. And we do have another one. We had one drug that expired and it became stale and no longer can be used. Another that has been replaced, but we have another drug that is getting close to being an expiration date. So, when are we going to execute a criminal is still unknown at this point. It's in the Supreme Court's hands.
And if it were simply a matter of Arkansas's rules, it's not necessarily likely the Supreme Court would be taking. There are a few other states who find themselves in this similar situation, most notably our neighbor Oklahoma here. And looking at kind of custom and practice, the more an issue has kind of a regional or national concern, the more likely the Supreme Court is to address it. So I think there's a decent chance that you would see the Supreme Court taking up this broad question, which the Arkansas case would be a part.
Right, and this comes just after the state got another supply of the drugs, but as you mentioned, we are about to have one of the other drugs expire, so the longer this can be delayed, it makes it more difficult for the state, because there was talk they wanted to schedule several executions in the very near future.
Yeah, if I could, I think that right after the elections last year, or in 14, the Attorney General and the Governor started moving forward with them. I think actually 4 were set, as I believe, but of course then because of all the legal issues, they were stayed and went back to court, and so it's going to be a long time, if ever, that I think an execution will occur in Arkansas.
As we record the program mid-morning Friday, a case is going before the Arkansas Ethics Commission. Matt Campbell, an attorney and liberal blogger, has filed a complaint against Governor Hutchinson, and how this is involving something that's been standard practice, campaigning for others during, what's the term, regular office hours?
Yes. Blogger Campbell has referenced an Arkansas law dating back to 1915, which does put some very, very strict regulations on campaigning during, as you say, regular business hours here. I am not familiar with the particular circumstances that led to the initial enactment of this legislation, but I do know from the date 1915, this was a part of the progressive era in American history. And one of the major themes of that era was an attempt to root out corruption in government by separating, so far as possible, politics on the one hand and governmental administration on the other. And my strong suspicion is this particular law dates to that spirit here. Now, practically speaking, we know you can't completely separate politics and government, politics, and governance. And certainly the customs and practices I referred to earlier in the previous issue apply here as well. Long-standing winking and nodding at the realities that those we elect politically are going to govern with an eye on politics here. My own suspicion is that this particular complaint's not going to get much traction with the Ethics Committee. We'll find out.
Of course, Matt Campbell, the blogger, has a history of these types of ethics complaints. He filed an ethics complaint a couple years ago, accusing of the Attorney General, Leslie Rutledge, as well as Dennis Milligan, State Treasurer, of doing kind of the same thing, but they were in Iowa campaigning for then presidential candidate Governor Mike Huckabee. And the Ethics Commission came back and said the state law does exempt campaigning if you're campaigning for somebody's running for federal office. In the case of the governor was supposedly campaigning for a state senator, who was seeking re-election. And at the time of the decision involving the Attorney General and the Treasurer, the Ethics Commission was pretty clear that there was a distinction between the two. So if you just read what they said then and what the allegation is now, it's going to be very interesting. I'm kind of with Dr. Bass, and I agree that there may not be anything of substance that comes out of this other than maybe a recommendation for the legislature to go in and revisit the law.
Yeah, but
something
with
to that effect.
With that decision now, that puts this, potentially gives this complaint a little more merit, or it's at least something that the Ethics Commission will have to address. The governor's office put out a statement saying they believe the complaint is without merit. But Steve, this could, one of the potential, what the Ethics Commission could do if they do find anything, one of the options is removal from office. Again, unlikely for this kind of situation, but it's still something that could create problems.
The governor could be charged with a misdemeanor, and if he is convicted, then he would be removed from office. The statute is fairly straightforward and black and white, but it is a long-standing practice. I mean, the thought of a governor not being able to make a speech for one of his favored legislators during 8 to 5 is almost kind of ridiculous. But it is there, and that is, if you look at the letter of the law, it seems like it's a little bit of a weird situation. You wonder if the Ethics Commission is going to kind of take the same kind of tack that, say, would happen with the real estate idea, that if your fence has been on somebody's property for 50 years, then by now it's your property. Well, maybe the Ethics Commission can say, well, this is such a long-standing practice that they will find a way to say that it's okay. But it could be an awkward situation. At the very least, you got to think that the law would be changed in the upcoming session.
And the governor is not attending this hearing, and the Ethics Commission usually doesn't rule right away. So we'll see what comes of this. Meanwhile, we did have a pretty significant jury decision by a federal court jury involving a man who ran a couple of mental health facilities for allegedly bribing a DHS contractor.
Right. Ted Sewell, who was running behavioral health services for youth programs in Northeast Arkansas, was charged with a variety of bribery charges, wire fraud charges, things like that. He was convicted of 4, and the accusation was that he had funneled money, $2,000 at a time, through a church in West Memphis, and that a former state lawmaker who was then a deputy director at DHS was taking the money and supposedly watching out for regulations and things to protect this youth services program. Ted Sewell was convicted. Interesting, though, the convictions were that he had paid the bribe, and the former state lawmaker and DHS director has also pled guilty, but there was no real evidence that anything was done to help him. The allegation was, he took the money and paid the money, but nothing was done to help him. So it's a very interesting case. It just goes to show how connected some of these Medicaid programs that are located out of state are with state government, how much money flows into them. I think it was $150 million in Medicaid funds. So it's a case that's been watched, and it really kind of gets the message out that the government is looking into these programs and making sure that everything's kind of on the up and up.
What gives a story this legs are a couple of things. One is, as Rob mentioned there, the sizable amounts of money. The reality is that if you're going to run a behavioral health operation, you're going to have to come to grips with the Medicaid system here. And you're going to become financially dependent on that flow of income. Another factor is the church connection, the fact that what the jurors accepted was the government's argument. The church was essentially a laundering agency for the bribes. And the third is the political connections that Sewell has had in the past, and the connections to the evangelical community here. So when you combine fraud and government waste and church and state issues, church and politics issues, it makes for a front page story.
Yeah. And a relatively quick decision, just 5 hours of deliberations for a trial that went on for about a week and had a lot of evidence. So clearly the jury must have been, had a clear idea about this. Sewell's attorney says they will appeal and are asking for a new trial. Well, heading into the coming week, the Democrats are going to be gathering. Any thoughts? I haven't seen a list yet of who's going to be speaking, but Arkansas's role in this coming convention?
I don't think it'll be as visible as was the Arkansas role at the Republican convention. But I did read that an Arkansas teacher is going to be one of the speakers early on in the session. And I do think in the normal biographical treatment of the presumptive nominee, Hillary Clinton, you're going to see some references to the Arkansas years here, particularly with regard to her role in children's issues and her role in educational reform, a couple of things that are visible on her resume that the convention planners are going to emphasize looking to the fall campaign.
Not to mention lots of pictures of her and Bill holding young Chelsea while they were in Arkansas. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of those, and this will be the place where she kind of came into her own. There'll be pictures back from the 1992 campaign. It'll be interesting to see how much they try to tie her to President Clinton or to try to kind of separate her. They're going to definitely try to tie her to President Obama at this point in many ways. His approval ratings are above 50% now. But will they try to separate her and say she's her own person, or will they try to tie her to those years? That'll be interesting to see.
And that, Steve brings up a good point. I really haven't heard anybody talk about how much of a role President Clinton is going to have in the convention. Could he play a big part? Is it really going to be more about her? Do they want him to take? Anytime he steps out on the stage, he gets a lot of attention, and do they want the attention to stay on her? So that'll be an interesting thing to watch too. I think the other thing is, and I guess it's supposed to happen today, is who's Hillary Clinton going to pick for her vice presidential running mate? Lots of names out there. The name you hear most of all is the U.S. Senator from Virginia, Tim Kaine. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the former president. She really hasn't brought him out on the campaign trail very much, but obviously spouses always usually give a significant speech, so I can imagine we would probably see Bill Clinton.
Oh, I think you'll see Clinton in a primetime address. I think you'll see him, and again, I've not seen the schedule, but I think we'll see him playing a role of trying to reintroduce Hillary to the country here and get beyond some of the pejorative stereotypes that came through last week and give a very different portrait of the candidate here. And he'll do it from a very personal perspective.
And I think just from reading the comments by Clinton and the Democrats as the Republican convention was going on. I think that a lot of the comments were there was no real mention of hope. It was just of the dour situation we're in now and the change that's needed. So I think that might be the tact of the Democrat convention, is more of a hope, optimism, that kind of thing. Kind of extending from when President Obama ran too. He ran on that same type of hope and change and optimism.
And let's don't forget that when Bill Clinton ran in '92, he was the man from hope
Right.
here. So I think there's a continuity there that's likely to be sustained going forward.
All right, well, we'll be back to discuss that next week and find out how that convention goes. Until then, thanks for joining us. I'm Michael Heplin.
Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.